Hello. Today I would like to go over the present perfect and present perfect progressive tenses with you. And I realize that some of you have zero difficulties with these, but they tend to be the verb tenses that cause the most trouble, and also that native English speakers make mistakes with. So that's why I wanted to go through this with you. So let's have a look. Where is the button? Here it is. Okay. So as I said, it's the most misused verb tense in the English language for a variety of reasons. So I'm going to go through and give you, I think, the information that is important, and I'll try not to make it too long. And I'm going to point out where native English speakers make the errors. For example, people will say, I taught the present perfect many times in my life. Grammatically, it's correct. But if there's a possibility that you're going to teach the present perfect, or you're going to do something again in your life, then it's correct to say, I have taught the present perfect many times in my life. If I say I taught the present perfect many times in my life, maybe it's the last thing I'm going to say before I die. So you say, Joy, what have you done in your life? And I say, oh my God, I taught the present perfect many times. I hope I have something better than that to say. So the simple part is the conjugation. My auxiliary is have or has, and then my verb is in the past participle. So if it's a regular verb like work, you just add ed, and if it's an irregular verb, you use the past participle like go, went, gone, take, took, taken. So these are irregular verbs. So there are two basic rules of using the present perfect, and then several sub-rules. So it's really in the sub-rules where people make mistakes. So the most basic rule, it's an action that occurred or did not occur at an unspecified moment in the past. For example, if I say I have written 2 books, you don't know when, and maybe it's irrelevant. So I use the present perfect. Or we have never gone to China. It means, in fact, so far in my life, I've not gone there, but there's a possibility that I will go. And in fact, I have gone, but that's neither here nor there. This is an old PowerPoint from several years ago. So one of the sub-rules is to say that we have the experience of doing something. So Patrick has traveled to Africa. It means he has the experience of being there. We haven't seen that movie before, so we know that we don't have the experience. Or Sonia has already taken the train alone. Oh, there she goes. Very exciting. We also use it to show a change over time. So he has grown a beard since I last saw him. That's lovely. They have learned how to speak Spanish in the last year. So in the last year. The action has not finished yet, but there has been a change over time. Hola, me llamo Juan. We also use it to talk about accomplishments when there is no specific time. Again, I have finally finished correcting. That's what I said on December 23rd last year after having the hardest semester of my life. Or Chris has graduated from university at last. It means we have been expecting, and thank goodness. Or they have arrived at their destination. Boy, that's a rough landing. We also use it to talk about uncompleted actions that you are expecting, but once again at an unspecified time. I still haven't seen their new baby yet. It means I'm expecting to see the baby. Have you gone swimming at the new pool yet? So here I'm using it in a question structure because I know that you are expecting to visit the new pool and to jump in and have a great time. Or I still haven't found what I'm looking for. I expect that I'll find it, but I haven't found it yet. Next, we use the present perfect. Again, this is one of the sub-rules, but a repeated action at an unspecified time. I have heard that song several times, but I don't know the artist's name, or she has watched that movie at least 10 times. I often hear people say, it's the first time that I eat that. In fact, it's incorrect because even though it's the first time, we understand that it could be repeated. So you would need to say, it's the first time I have eaten that, or it's the first time I have seen that program, or whatever. The second rule is an action that started in the past and is still continuing. I just want to come back and say, for the first rule, that is where native English speakers make a lot of mistakes. This one, the second rule, is where people who are learning the language make a lot of mistakes. So they have known each other since last summer. A native English speaker would just know how to say that without even ever having to think about it. Or she has worked at Rona for 2 weeks. We haven't talked for 3 months. So the action started in the past and it's still continuing. So we have keywords that indicate that to us. So they are for, since, and the idea of all. So for tells us a time that can be measured for 2 weeks, for 3 days, for 5 minutes. Since tells us when the action began, so since Saturday, and all gives us a complete time, so all my life, all week, when the action is still continuing. So I have spoken English all my life. So we can compare the simple past and the present perfect. Again, I don't really care if you know the names of the verb tenses. It makes no difference to me, but as long as you can use the right verb tense at the right time and use them correctly. So remember, the simple past is an action that we use to describe at a specified time in the past and it's finished. So I saw him last week. In the present perfect, I have seen him recently. So recently tells me that it's some point in the past before now. I traveled a lot in my life, so I'm on my deathbed, and you're asking me what have I done, and that's it. I traveled a lot. But if I say I have traveled a lot in my life, it means I've gone, I have traveled, I'm still going to travel, and I'm certainly hoping that is the case. Next, I had a nightmare last night, again specified time in the past, simple past. Or I have had many bad dreams in my lifetime. Unfortunately, it means I think I'm going to have another bad dream at some other point. Next, we want to look at the simple past and the present perfect. This is a native, I don't know if you heard my husband just coming in behind me, native speaker error. I didn't eat that yet. I hear this quite often. If you're speaking with your friends and you don't need to be making an oral presentation, doing an oral presentation in front of me, then that's absolutely correct. But if you are grammatically, the sentence is wrong because of the word yet. I haven't eaten yet. Or I went there before. Grammatically, it's incorrect. I have gone there before. So again, if you're out speaking with your friends, it doesn't make any difference if you say this. But if you're doing an oral presentation for me or you're writing your text, please make sure you try to use the correct verb tense. So as I said, the simple past expresses an idea that an action started and finished at a specified and specific time in the past. You can look at these examples. Next, we have the difference between the simple present and the present perfect. We use the simple present in English to talk about a fact or a habit or a truth. For example, I could say, I know them. That's just a fact. But if I say, I have known them for 4 months, then I'm putting an emphasis on the time. And the fact is that I met them 4 months ago and I still know them. Or this is the first time. This is the first time I have heard this explanation. So again, I hear people say this. This is the first time I hear this. Grammatically, it's wrong. Or she studies in health science. Health sciences, that's just a fact. But she has studied in health sciences since September. It tells me when the action began. So we compare French and present perfect. Ça fait 2 ans que je travaille ici. I have worked here for 2 years. Je l'ai pas vu depuis la semaine passée. Don't laugh at my accent. I haven't seen him since last week. So a general trick is that we use the present perfect to introduce a subject, and then we use the simple past to ask more specific questions. So you can look at the example. Next, we have the present perfect progressive, and I just want to go over this quickly because some of you will say, oh, it sounds like the same thing. And in many ways it is. The present perfect progressive is what a native English speaker would use whenever possible. And again, we don't think about it. It just comes out of our mouth that way. So it's an action in progress from the past time until the present. So I have been working here for 18 years. Obviously, I prepared this PowerPoint a long time ago. I've been now working there for 26 years. in a long time. We use the present perfect progressive to emphasize the duration of an activity. She's been sleeping since Sunday morning. These little icons here are important, especially for people who are learning English as a second language, just in the sense that whenever we talk about a progressive verb or a continuous verb, you have to consider it as a true action. So something that happens in your head, like remember, forget, is not an action. So I cannot say I have been remembering. Or something that happens in your heart, like or love, hate. These are not true actions as well, so I cannot use them in the progressive. McDonald's used to say, I'm loving it, and all the English teachers in the world would get angry and say, that's incorrect, because it's not a progressive verb. So there are some nuances between the present perfect and the present perfect progressive, or I just call them the PP and the PPP. In the PP, we have a completed action. So it demonstrates a desired effect. I finished my project at last. But in the PPP, something is still continuing, and we have an unwanted side effect. Why is there dirt on the floor? Oh, because I have been working. So we see that the unwanted side effect is the dirt. Or present perfect, it means since the last time. She hasn't gone on vacation in 5 years. But in the present perfect progressive, it tells me something, the action from the beginning. She has been traveling for 4 days and already wants to go home. And also we use the present perfect progressive when the results are still visible, but the action maybe has just recently finished. So that's similar to the unwanted side effect. She is sweating because she has been exercising, or she has been jogging, and we understand that she's just finished. So we see the result of that action. Sometimes they're exactly the same. I've worked here for 18 years, or I have been working here for 18 years. Same. A native English speaker will just use this one without thinking about it. And if you can learn the difference between the two, you should use the present perfect progressive as well, because it's a lot easier to conjugate. You do not have to think about, is my verb regular or irregular? Do I need an irregular past participle? You just always use I have been, or she has been, and then ing on your verb. These 4 verbs in particular, teach, work, live, and study, are completely interchangeable between the present perfect and present perfect progressive. Sometimes you cannot interchange those 2 verb tenses. For example, I have known them for 5 months, or we have seen Harry Potter 6 times. I cannot say I have been knowing them for 5 months. We have been seeing Harry Potter 6 times. It does not work, because to know happens in your head, and to see is also a non-action verb. If you say, even if you say we've been watching if you say we have been watching Harry Potter since our early childhood, then I would say maybe it's time to watch something else. There are tons of exercises. Here are a couple of links, but I can give you some exercises as well. This definitely will be on our grammar test at the end of the semester. And if you have any questions, you can do the exercises in your book again, or you can come and see me and I can give you some exercises. So I hope that wasn't too long and boring. Thank you. Have a lovely day.